we have two ways of reaching the abstraction in Java. One is the abstract class and other one is the interface. Abstract class is a partial abstraction and the interface is a full abstraction. So we usually call the interfaces as an abstract data type. In interfaces, we have variables, which is constant variables. They are always public, static, final. And the methods, by default, they are public, abstract. Let's create an interface, naming the interface as a flyable. Let's say we have an object that's flyable. So a flyable is going to be an interface. So when we create any variables in the flyable interface, let's say a flyable objects will have wings, right? So we will say integer or wings. So when we try to create this variable, it will start giving us a compilation error. The reason it's giving a compilation error because the variables in interface are constant variables, which are public, static, final variables. And when the variable is final, those variables should be initialized. We should give a value for it. And we cannot reinitialize those public, static, final variables. Do we see public, static, final here? No, but we can also type them saying public, static, final, but it's redundant. Java will say, hey, modifier final is redundant for interface fields because we don't have to type this. That will be there by default anyway. So we have the variables, constant variables. And usually when we have a constant variables, we need to make them in uppercase. So Java says it's a good practice to make your constant variables in uppercase. And let's have another variable, which is integer tails, right? Every flyable object will have a tail. And so we will say equals to 1. So here I again made this variable in uppercase because I know this variable going to be public, static, and final. Can we have a regular different methods, variables in interface? No, they will be always constant variables. The next thing is about the methods of the interface. Let's say when I have a fly method in interface, that method, let's say, will return void, no return, and we will say fly. So you can see here, I didn't pass the access modifier since the methods in the interface will be always public. It is not a default access modifier, but it is public. And here, if I will try to give a method statement, which is a body, it will start complaining by saying interface abstract methods cannot have body. So I didn't mention this method is going to be an abstract method, but the thing is, this method will be abstract by default. Even if we don't type that, that method will be abstract, and we know that abstract methods doesn't have a body. So again, this method will be public abstract by default. As you can see, it's kind of gray color. It says abstract is redundant because it will be there anyway. The same for the public access modifier. So what we did here, we created an interface, okay, that is called a flyable. So this is an interface. Now, we will have a class that is going to be a bird, right? So we will say bird is a child of flyable. Is the bird flyable? Yes, it is. So we will say bird is flyable. We will create a class that's named a bird. Let's create a class. So this bird class will inherit the flyable interface. To inherit the flyable interface, we use a implements keyword. We don't use extends. Extends we use only when we inherit a class to another class. But here we inherit the interface to a class, so we use implements. So we will say flyable. So right here, it will give us a compilation error. It will say, hey, the bird is a regular class and it cannot inherit abstract methods. But if the bird wants to inherit the abstract methods, then the bird should implement those methods. Okay, so class bird must either be declared an abstract, it cannot be a regular class, or it should implement the abstract methods from the flyable interface. So we gotta implement those methods, right? So here it is. So we'll say system out print line, bird is flying. Can we say a bird make noise? Yes. So let's create one more interface. Let's say noise. And this interface will have a method that will say void make noise. But what we will do with this interface? Can a class bird inherit this interface, which is noise? So we say a class doesn't inherit multiple classes, but it can inherit multiple interfaces. That's one of the biggest reasons we have the interface in Java that allows us multiple inheritance, that allows us to inherit multiple interfaces. So here we will go back to the bird class and we will say, hey, we want to implement the flyable class. At the same time, we want to implement the noise interface, flyable interface and noise interface. And again, it will give us a compilation error. The reason is we should implement the abstract methods from the noise interface, right? So make noise, we will say here, birds make noise, chirik, right? Now we see that a bird implementing the flyable and noise interface. It can implement as many interfaces as it wants. There's no limitation for it, and that's one of the key features of the interface, that it allows multiple inheritance in Java. And we have variables in interface are constant by default, right? And the methods are public abstract by default. But we don't inherit any class from the bird, right? We say implements a flyable and noise interface, but we know that interfaces doesn't inherit any class. Interface can inherit an interface, but it doesn't inherit any class. So we say in Java, every class will inherit object class, but here bird doesn't have any relationship with the object class. It actually has. The bird by default will extend an object class, will inherit an object class, right? So of course it's redundant to say extends object class because it will anyway inherit the object class. So the here we have object class that is here, and the bird will be inheriting the object class by default. Okay, so we don't have to type the extends object, but we can just leave it as it is. And again, we can inherit only one class from the bird, but we can inherit as many interfaces as we want. That's all about the interface.